Hello, hi. How are you? Welcome back to my story. My name is Harley Nouveau, if you did not know. And today, as promised, I have, in this chapter of mine, eyeshadow review for you. I haven't done a review in a hot minute, I feel like, so I'm kind of excited. Before we get into that, I don't have a lot of updates. I actually am filming 2 videos back to back, so if you want to see my thoughts on other products that got this look together, keep an eye out for that. It'll be coming soon. And I had some announcements in that one, so it seems dumb to repeat it. But thanks for stopping by. Before we get into this, if you could please like this video and subscribe to my channel, add your name to the storybook that is my life. I'm always looking to expand the cast, and who knows where this journey will take us. If you aren't familiar with how these reviews go, after I break it down, I let you know whether I love it or it's a happily ever after, whether I hate it or it's a happily never after. You don't have to take my word as gospel, but if you want the opinion of an overweight art student with a license in aesthetics and whatever the hell all this is, keep watching. So with that all being said, let's get into the review. So according to the website,
our latest storybook palette takes a different form of storytelling as we attempt to convey the dark and beautiful journey of Vincent Van Gogh's The Starry Night. 12 exclusive cruelty-free shades formulated, created, and manufactured here in the USA.
Which, if you're someone that cares about that, that's great.
Packaged in our signature patented storybook-shaped palette, now with a storage drawer.
I'm reading this whole thing, I hope you know.
Buttery matte, sparkling metallics, and everything in between, this palette is everything you need to create your own masterpiece.
And this does retail for $60. Now, typically when I do these videos, I go through a couple of different steps. In order, I'm gonna talk about the packaging, the color story, the performance, then I'm gonna give my actual, my final thoughts, I guess, and the verdict. The first thing we're gonna dive into is the packaging. One of my favorite things about Storybook Cosmetics, because if you know me, you know I am like single white female obsessed with fairy tales, is that everything is storybook themed. And their makeup, their eyeshadow palette specifically, are amazing for display because they look like books from far away. That is something that I don't find a lot with makeup, because not that there's anything wrong with looking like makeup, but it looks like makeup. Are you just gonna display an eyeshadow palette? Like, you can. I'm not into that. So I like having something that is actually displayable, that looks like a display piece, first and foremost. It comes with a sleeve, and that sleeve looks like a painting on the front for this one, which is great because obviously Starry Night's a painting. It's pretty decent quality. It's just, you know, what you'd find on a DVD cover. And then of course the back says the history of this company. Once upon a time, there were 3 sisters who never stopped believing in fairy tales, and they all lived happily ever after. I'm filing a lawsuit as we speak. Just kidding. I have all the ingredients in the back. The component itself is very sturdy. I don't know if this is cardboard. I would say it is, but it's like a heavier duty cardboard. It flips open to reveal the color story. There's a mirror included. The inside is basically just matte, but it does come with a quote from Vincent Van Gogh that says, "For my part, I know nothing with any certainty, but the sight of the stars makes me dream." Starry Night has always been one of my favorite paintings because if you know me, besides being obsessed with fairy tales, I'm obsessed with the night sky, the stars, and the moon. So I'm tacky, I'm cliche. This whole thing just appealed to me. This is one of the few things that when it came out, I immediately was like all up on that. I needed it in my life for a myriad of reasons, packaging and concept being one of them. So for me, I would say the packaging in general is an A+. Probably my favorite eyeshadow packaging of anything I've ever seen, except for some stuff that I'm not gonna talk about yet because I'm really excited to show it down the line. It does, as it said, come with a drawer that has the entire painting inside and on the back. I don't know how I feel about that. It's cool, I suppose, if you want to take this for travel because you can put some brushes in there, but they'd have to be some tiny brushes. Like, this is too long and you would kind of ruin your, you know, brush head. So the idea is nice. I also just don't like the idea of traveling with this little thing. Maybe because it's so pretty, Even though it's sturdy, I wouldn't want to ruin it. So I would say that's a bit unnecessary, but it doesn't really detract anything for me there. So A+ on the packaging. As far as the color story goes, what is it to say? It literally is the colors from the painting. I think that I saw some people online saying they were disappointed with the color story. I actually think that the color story is what sold me on the palette. Looking up Starry Night eyeshadow palettes, I know there was another one that came out at the same time. They also had a very similar concept. This one is from For Art's Sake. You can tell it's very similar, actually. So I'm not quite sure what the issue was there. I think sometimes people just like to hate, honestly, and it could also be a side effect of the fact that the palette is $60. But as we already talked about, the component is high quality, so I think it's, you know, justifiable if the formula is great, which we'll talk about in a second. The setup of the color story is pretty nice too. If you break it into sections, I would say most of these colors would work well together, which is important. I think that the color story makes sense. You get some color stories, sorry, Star Cosmetics, that just look like they were kind of thrown into the pan for the most part. So I would say that's great as well. The pan size is pretty appropriate. I would say it's decently sized for comparison, actually. A lot of other ones I have, with the exception of maybe my Morphe palettes, because like if you look at this Orangey Glad palette and this one, it's about, I would say 15% bigger. I don't know if you can tell that really easily. Hand size is great. I think that there's a pretty good mix of metallics and mattes. However, I will say this color right here, which I'll tell you the color names when I get there, is a glitter. It's actually very similar to the jelly glitters, in my opinion, from ColourPop. Like if you have these jelly mutt shadows, it's a very similar consistency. It's not like straight up glitter, I don't think. It could be foiled eyeshadow, which I do love because it's more eco-friendly. But I just wanted to say that I don't know why it didn't specify on the website that that color was that way. Color story again, I would say solid A+. I can't think of anything from the painting I think should get added in there. Look at them next to each other. Maybe a black, but the firmament is dark enough that this color is dark enough that I don't think you would need it. So I don't know. I think people are smoking something, honestly. So color story, thumbs up. Let's get on to the actual product itself. Now, as a reminder, when I talk about the eyeshadow formula, I will have in the left or right footage of me putting on this eyeshadow. I'm obviously wearing it today, and I will be wearing it again tomorrow, and I'll include footage of that up there as well for comparison. Starting from the top left and working our way right and down, we have 1853, a metallic sapphire color. Venus, a matte, I would say like a deep denim blue. Mon, what looks like a kind of mustardy yellow color. Theo, a shimmery light blue. Cypress, a cerulean matte. Rustig, that kind of jelly shimmery silver. Firmament, a what looks like almost deep green matte. Hemel, a dark muted blue, I would say borderline navy, but slightly green tinted. Vincent, a gold and cobalt shift. Window, a shimmery orange color, it's just basically orange. Junie, a kind of green, gold, blue, and then Nocturne, of course, like a mossy matte green. And of course, here they are swatched on my arm, going that way. Now, I do want to preface this entire conversation actually by saying that I don't think that swatching is really that important. I do it because people like it, but in general, swatching is not an accurate depiction of how the shadows are going to perform, mostly because you're using your finger so it mixes with the oil instead of a brush, which is typically how one applies shadow. Also because just the whole pressing and dragging in general doesn't really give you an accurate depiction of how it performs. But looking at the swatches, the mattes are a little bit patchy and a little bit sheer. However, again, want to say that shouldn't turn you off from trying an actual formula. That's why I think it's important when people do eyeshadow reviews that they actually show them putting them on in some capacity, or at least talk about how they perform, instead of just judging based off of swatches. Specific colors that I thought was interesting. This jelly foil, whatever the hell that's supposed to be, actually blends out really well. It almost looks like a glitter topper, but it's not actual glitter, it's like a shimmer. So I'm assuming, again, like I said, it's a foil shimmer. I have it on my lid's inner corner. When you blend it out all the way, it just looks like a normal metallic. The orange color is especially beautiful because it has that golden reflect to it. This color also Vincent because it is duochrome. And then I don't think that the swatch of 1853 does that color justice. In the pan and in actuality, it is a gorgeous sapphire color. I have it on my lid. In person, of course, it's covered up by a lot, but when I used it for the first time, I gasped. As far as the formula performance goes, I did 2 different looks, pretty different in execution. I noticed that the color payoff is a bit inconsistent in practice versus in the pan. The biggest culprits, in my opinion, were this what looks like mustard, and the cypress, the cerulean color. When I put on cypress and started blending it out, it almost looked slightly greenish, and my eyeshadow base was translucent, and my skin color is not warm enough to warp it that much, in my opinion. So the fact that it got immediately slightly green tinted, almost as if I had a yellower concealer underneath, was a bit suspicious. Mine, in my opinion, is the biggest disappointment in the palette, because looking at it in the pan, it looks accurate. Looking at it in person, it is a lot darker and more limon color. It's literally like a borderline green. And I thought it was gonna be kind of neon-ish. It's like if you've ever seen those golds that lean green, it's that color. I'm honestly not a fan. I also noticed that that one was more sheer in application, so if you really want it to build, you gotta pack it up. As far as the performance of the shadows, I've worn them a couple times now. One with the primer that I will talk about in my next video that ruined everything. I actually really love the Storybook Cosmetic shadow formula for both shimmers and for mattes. I find the mattes to be extremely blendable. If you noticed in my footage and looking at my face, there was virtually no fallout, and I did my face first, which I never do because I'm scared of fallout. So that is great, especially for blues, because from my experience, blue shadows usually have way more fallout than a lot of other shadows. So I think that that's definitely something to the benefit of Storybook Cosmetics. I also think that color payoff for most of these is very up there. A lot of them are, which was why I said the swatching is misleading, a lot of them came out very pigmented in my opinion. So the mattes were pigmented and blendable. The shimmers are not super soft. So when I tried it for the very first time, which was like a year ago with Briar Rose palette, I was really scared because the shimmer, in theory, I thought was going to perform like Ace Beauty, where it's really hard and doesn't have a lot of payoff, but it's firm yet creamy, if that makes any sense. The shimmers are actually, I think, the superior formula of the two, especially if you look at, I know I said swatches weren't anything, how these two perform in swatch. And when you actually apply them, they're one of the few shimmer formulas I've used where you can use a brush by itself, dry, and still get like full opacity. And when you do wet it or you use your finger, it makes it even more opaque and vibrant. So I think, I wouldn't say it's my favorite formula of all. I would say that the formula is pretty up there, and you don't need to supplement its shortcomings with other techniques like wetting your brush. I think that when you blend the colors together too, they work really well. A lot of times when I use some eyeshadow palettes, especially when you use contrasting tones, they get very, very muddy. I didn't notice that much with these shadows when I used them. I thought that the colors blended into each other very seamlessly and flawlessly. I wonder whatever happened to John McClane. What impressed me the most though was Rustig, however you say that. Like I said, I think it's a foiled eyeshadow shimmer. So it looks like glitter, but it performs like eyeshadow, which makes it eye safe. And I've talked a lot, especially in my 9-pan reviews of the ColourPop palette, about how I wish that they would stop using glitter and start using something like that because it's more eco-friendly. So I really love that that was in the palette. That was a very nice surprise. I just wish that they had advertised that. In summary, I think the packaging is beautiful. Obviously, it's Starry Night, so it looks like Story Night, but I think it's high quality and it's a great display piece. I think you can get a good variety of looks with this color story. I would say the formula is very good as well. The biggest drawbacks, as I said, are the fact that these two colors right here, not really true to pan when you use them. And yeah, I don't think it's a big enough detractor from all of the great things about this palette. So with all of that being said, the Storybook Cosmetics The Starry Night palette is definitely a happily ever after. I think that if this is the kind of color story that appeals to you, if you like collecting makeup that can be used as display, this is definitely something you should add to your collection. I don't know if it's limited edition. I think that it was at the time, so if it's not available, I'm sorry. If it is, go get it. The $60 price point is pretty steep, I'm not gonna lie, but I think that all of the qualities of the palette make up for that, and it's an indie brand, so they usually have to charge a little bit more. In my opinion, I think it's worth the $60. But tell me how you guys felt in the comments below. Did this look like something that interests you? Did you get it? Do you disagree with anything that I said? Always happy to hear some other opinions beside my own in this vacuum of a channel that I have. As always, I want to thank you for stopping by and spending this time with me. It's another chapter closed in my story. I am Harley Nouveau, and I wish each of you every happiness until our stars next align.